In this video, I'm going to replace the shocks on my Super 73 S2. Hey, what's going on? This video should be a lot of fun, but right out of the gate, let me give you a disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am doing this for the first time. I'm replacing the shock on my Super 73 S2, and I'm going to see what it takes, and I'm going to bring you along with me. So hopefully you're here for the process. But we're going to put these shocks on the Super 73 S2, probably the third time I've said that. And to be honest, this isn't really an upgrade on the shocks. These aren't upgraded shocks. I ordered these off of AliExpress, and I'll put the link in the description below. Where something like this would really come in handy are for you Super 73 ZX riders, because as you may or may not know, those come with no suspension. So the reason why I'm swapping them out on my S2, you might be able to hear it, but I think, I'm going to try to bounce this real quick. You can hear how rattly that is. I think that the head dampener is loose or shot. So I'm going to pull these off, put these on, and maybe someday tear into these and get them serviced and see if I can't get them back to new, because I like the original parts. Out of the box, these feel pretty sturdy. I think I'm going to have to replace this crown here to put back on the Super 73 crown so I can put my handlebars back on. There's nowhere to mount handlebars on this thing, so we'll see what that takes. And also came with a sweet water bottle too, so can't be all that bad. Anyway, let's dig into this thing. All right, I'm going to take the batteries off first, just so I have less weight to worry about. Got two here. I got the Shy Battery Systems Ranger, link in the description below if you want a discount. This thing doubles my range. Next, I'm going to remove the handlebars without taking anything off, because I plan on keeping these as my handlebars. So I've also disconnected the Hygo connectors on the cane-built headlight. As you can see, it's screwed in, holding the cane-built brackets, so I just got to take this headlight off. I also have a zip tie to clip over here, but I'm just going to take off the whole headlight and get it out of the way. You know, maybe it would have been smart to take the tire off while I still had handlebars. We'll see how difficult this is. All right, that wasn't too bad. All right, let's remove the brakes. My brake setup looks different than yours. It's because I've added bigger rotors, which I have a video for. And so I had to add a different spacer. So that's why you might see a different looking spacer on your bike. Let's make sure I don't lose any of these parts. Got to remove this fender too. Your stem cap is going to look different than mine. Yours is probably going to have a Super 73 logo on it. This is something that I bought online that tells the temperature. So it's a little thermometer. I'm gonna loosen that. Let's see if this is the right one. Nope. There's a little washer down here that you don't want to lose. And it looks like it's gotten pretty dirty in there. I don't know if you can see that, but it's probably a good thing to take this apart and clean up. There's also some spacers, and there's the stem of the suspension. You can see all the way down through there. So this is where I am entering unfamiliar territory, removing this crown off of my suspension. I think this is how you do it, and it looks like there are 4 bolts to remove, and so we'll start there. So it looks like the crown just slides off just like that, and then your suspension should slide right out of the bottom. Before you get to the step of pulling out the suspension, make sure that you remove that brake line fastener. So this is what the Super 73 fork looks like removed. Of course, I removed the top crown there. Also, there are some bearings that will come off with it. Make sure that you hang on to those. This one is a bottom bearing. Probably won't see it very well in the video, but it has kind of this beveled edge at the top. That's going to be facing upward. That's the orientation that it came when I removed it. So there's that to consider. Also, there's some bearings in the shaft here that at the top that you want to hang on to as well. So don't lose those. Okay, while I have this exposed, I don't want to introduce any dust into the bearings. So I'm going to take this dry microfiber cloth and just kind of clean up around this area and then add some grease before I put it back on. So that's an interesting view of the Super 73 S2 without its suspension fork. Alright, so here's the new fork. Here is the old fork. I'm going to remove the crown off of the new fork and see if it fits up into the stem tube of my Super 73 S2. However, I noticed that this tube, this stem here, is flared on the old suspension, and this one is more straight. So I'm going to at least try without swapping this brace here to see if that fits up in and everything works out and it doesn't rattle around. If not, then I'm going to remove this brace and actually reuse this stem as well. So that's something to consider. But yeah, we're getting there. It's going a lot easier than I thought it would so far. Oh man. Almost knocked over the camera. Alright, so this is the first test, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to need to use that flared piece. There's just way too much play in there. Okay, so as a recap, I'm going to remove this brace and slide this brace onto the new fork so that everything fits perfectly. Okay, so I got the Super 73 brace onto the new suspension, and I dropped a screw. One thing has me a little concerned is that this stanchion here moves independently. I mean, I assume they both do, but this one seems to move separately or more fluidly than this one here. So just gonna make sure I have them even. These little rubber pieces are what, it's like a stopper against the frame of your bike, so I want to hang on to those. These are the original Super 73 ones. I'm keeping those because I like how they cover up the bolts there. Alright, I think I'm ready to fit this thing back on. Hopefully I have everything measured up right and everything looks good here. But first I'm going to grease up this bearing with this Pro Tools bike grease. I just got it off of Amazon. I'll link it in the description below. Actually, it's just called High Performance Grease. So just want to make sure everything's running nice and clean and smooth. So I'll put a little around this base here, just kind of spread it around. Don't want too much. Then I'll also put some on my bearing. Get that nice and smooth, both sides. Again, there's kind of a beveled edge on this bearing. Not sure if you can see that, but that faces up and it just slides right over. Runs nice and smooth. Alright, so this has a little metal clamp in there. Go ahead and set that aside. I think that's just kind of like a tensioner. Then we will grease up this bearing that's inside of the top of the stem. Make sure that that's running nice and smooth. Alright, we'll slide our fork up through here, through the bearing, and then you also want to make sure that your wires stay on the inside of the forks. Alright, so let's throw on this ring. Might as well give it a little grease. So we got this all greased up. The thinner part goes facing down to hold the tube in this stem tube. And then last but not least is this kind of rubber flange piece that just sits right on top. Basically what this does is it protects this tube and the bearings from getting dust into it. So you want to make sure it has a nice seat on the tube there. Okay, so as you can see here, this stanchion isn't quite up flush to where I need it to be. So I'm going to have to loosen some things and make some adjustments to make sure that everything is right where it belongs. Okay, so I have 4 bolts in the top crown here to tighten up. Just gonna screw them in, not all the way tight, but then I'll kind of tighten them in a sequence here. Not anything specific, just something that I feel like I should do. So I don't have them all the way tight, but I want to make sure everything is clamped on perfectly before I tighten it all. But we are getting close. Just make sure everything is nice and tight. Feels pretty good. Okay, so I removed some spacers off of the stem there, so you just put those on. Then I have my stem captain, so that fits right in there. Tighten this up. Just go to stemcaptain.com if you're interested in something like this. Let's see, am I going the right way? Oh, I'm using this wrong size. There we go. Get that nice and tight. That's just going to help clamp everything and secure it. And then my thermometer. It says it's still 90 degrees out here and it's 6:30. Okay, now let's do the handlebars, because I believe that'll help me get the tire on easier. But it's starting to look like a bike again. Alright, and whenever you are doing handlebars, you do want to tighten in a crisscross pattern. Alright, before I get them too tight, I want to make sure that they're even and in the right position. Also, don't do what I just did and squeeze the brake lever when your tire's off, because now I have to separate the brakes again, the brake pads. But I think that looks pretty good. And of course, before I put the tire back on, I want to put my fender back on. And now for the tire. Like it was meant to be. Now it's time to put the brakes back on. I've made several videos about brakes, so if you want to go back through the catalog, check those out, feel free to do so. Right now I'm just putting the spacer on because I've upgraded my rotors to 203s from 180s. I've also done a video about that. And before I get my brakes all the way tightened up on here, I just want to squeeze the brake lever and then tighten the bolts. That'll make sure that they're nice and centered. And also, if you watched my rotor upgrade video, I was kind of worried about the even wear on the pads because I wasn't quite sure how they set on the rotor, but I just double checked and they actually look like they're wearing just fine. And you want to make sure the brake line stays out of the way using this provided little bracket here. Here it is, all put back together. Now I didn't want to bore you with putting on the headlight and my handlebar pad or anything like that, so I just went ahead and did that. But got the brakes aligned, headlights in place, tires are tight. These are the new shocks, nice up and close. Now the brand is called Bellini. Again, I got it off of AliExpress. Took about a month to get here. Now the one difference that I do see between these shocks and the stock ones is that there's not this rebound adjustment on the bottom of the Bellini shocks. I'm okay with that. I rarely adjusted this, even though I probably should have, but that's just how fast the tubes recoil, and it depends on what kind of terrain you're riding. So we'll see if it makes any difference on these, but all in all, I think they look great. Now the last thing that I want to do before I take this for a test ride is make sure that the shock air pressure is adjusted to my weight. And because I think these are similar to the stock Super 73 forks, I'm going to go ahead and use their manual to decide. So for my weight, I want to put in about 118 PSI. Now you don't want to use a regular bike pump for this because that puts too much air pressure. So this is a specialized shock pump. If you're not comfortable with doing this, then your local bike shop will be able to do it. So it kind of feels weird holding old suspension forks in my hand, but let's go test out the new ones. Let's test this out. It's definitely already a lot quieter than my old suspension. You'd hear the stock suspension rattling at this point, but this felt a lot smoother. There's no rattle now. I do need to adjust my brakes. I can hear them, but let's not worry about that right now. How's it going? What's up, man?
How are you doing today?
Good. Yep, I can definitely tell a difference. Now another reason to do this is if your forks are out of warranty like mine were, and Super 73 is out of stock on their branded suspension forks, you know, these come in at a fraction of the cost. I think out the door I paid $130, maybe $150 with shipping, but Super 73s are like 400 bucks. So that's another reason why you would do this swap like I did. All right, other than my brakes, these feel pretty smooth. That does it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. And I learned a new skill. I had no idea before this how to swap out a suspension fork, but it turned out to be a lot easier than I thought it would be. And now I know how to do it, at least on Super 73. So hopefully you learned something from this video. At the top of the video, I said it was for entertainment purposes, but as I do stuff like this, I learn stuff and I try to pass that knowledge on to you. When I first bought my Super 73 S2, I had no intentions of modding it, but once I got started, I really saw how I could make it my own. There's several different things that I've done to this bike. I've made videos about most of them, so if you're new around here, be sure to check those out. Anyway, that does it for this video. If you like it, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and leave a comment down below. Is this something that you would attempt? For you ZX owners, I would actually recommend it. So while you're down there leaving a comment, also hit that subscribe button. Have a great rest of your day.